The alien ship arrived on Earth without warning, appearing in the night sky like a new star before growing larger and descending to land in an empty field outside of Denver. The massive vessel hummed as it settled onto the ground, steam rising from its metallic surface. Susan Miller watched from the military observation post as the delegation prepared to meet the visitors. She was not supposed to be there, a low-ranking diplomatic aide in a sea of generals and politicians, but fate had placed her in this moment. Her boss had fallen ill just hours before the landing, and now she clutched her tablet nervously as the alien craft opened. The beings that emerged were tall, slender, and clearly female. Their skin shimmered with a blue tint that caught the sunlight. Their eyes, large and dark, seemed to absorb everything around them. Susan noted the way they moved with graceful precision, each step calculated yet fluid. Ambassador Kylera approached the human delegation. Her translator device glowed at her throat. The others of her kind remained behind her, forming a crescent. Her species, the Naviri, had traveled across 17 star systems to find Earth. The general stepped forward, but the aliens ignored them, their gaze fixed on Susan, who stood frozen in place. "You, the small female," Kylera said through her translator. "You will negotiate for your kind." Susan felt her heart race. Everyone turned to look at her. The generals began to protest, but the alien raised a hand, silencing them. "Speak only to those who carry no weapons," Kylera explained. "Your leaders are filled with thoughts of war. This one is not." Susan was escorted to a tent where the negotiations would take place. The Naviri refused to speak with anyone else. "Ambassador," Kylera explained that their society was led by females who could sense emotional states. The military minds present were too aggressive for proper communication. The Naviri needed something Earth had in abundance. Water. Not just any water, but specifically the unique mineral composition found in Earth's oceans. Their homeworld was dying and they had technology to trade. General Harris fumed as he paced outside the tent. "This is ridiculous," he said to his aide, Lieutenant Patel. "We can't let some secretary decide the fate of our planet." Lieutenant Patel watched Susan through the tent flap. The alien women seemed completely at ease with her. The general's words rang hollow as she observed the calm diplomatic exchange happening inside. Inside the tent, Susan learned about the Naviri. Their world orbited a dying star. Their technology had extended the life of their sun, but resources were limited. They had searched for compatible planets for generations. "We could take what we need by force," Kylera said simply, studying Susan's reaction. "But that is not our way. We believe in balance and harmony. Our scientists say your oceans can spare what we require without damage to your ecosystems." Susan nodded, considering her words carefully. "Earth has experienced many conflicts," she explained. "We have learned to be cautious, but I believe cooperation benefits us all. May I ask what you offer in exchange?" Kylera gestured, and another Naviri stepped forward. She carried a small metallic cube. "Unlike our technology will seem like magic to your people." She placed the cube on the table between them. The cube hummed and projected a holographic display showing medical procedures, energy generation systems, and environmental restoration technologies. "These are but a sample of what we can share," Kylera said. "Our medical science alone would eliminate many of your diseases. Our energy systems produce no harmful waste." Susan studied the projections, her mind racing. Despite her junior status, she had attended briefings on Earth's most pressing challenges: energy shortages, climate change, pandemic preparedness. The Naviri seemed to offer solutions to all these problems. She knew the military would want weapons, the politicians would want power. But Susan saw something more valuable: a chance for humanity to advance beyond its current limitations. "I would like to propose a framework for cooperation," she said carefully. "We can provide access to our oceans for the resources you need. In exchange, we would welcome knowledge that helps us heal our planet and our people." Kylera tilted her head, studying Susan intently. "You speak with wisdom unusual for your kind. Most species we encounter demand weapons or dominance technology first. Susan smiled. Humans are complicated. We have capacity for both great destruction and great compassion. I hope to show you our better nature. The negotiations continued through the night, Susan requesting breaks to consult with Earth scientists who analyzed the Naviri proposals. The military leaders grew increasingly frustrated as they were kept at a distance. Only President Diane Foster maintained calm, accepting the unusual diplomatic situation. By dawn, Susan had drafted preliminary terms. The Naviri would have regulated access to specific ocean regions. Their extraction methods would be monitored by human scientists. They would provide medical and energy technology, but no weapons. The exchange would begin with small projects to build trust. When she emerged from the tent, exhausted but satisfied, General Harris confronted her. "This is a mistake," he said. "We should be demanding their propulsion technology. Their defensive systems." Susan met his gaze steadily. "With respect, General." They came in peace, offering fair exchange, demanding. Their military technology would only confirm their fears about us. President Foster stepped forward, supporting Susan. "The young diplomat has negotiated prudently," she said. "This first contact represents humanity's introduction to the galactic community. We should put our best foot forward." As the sun rose higher, Ambassador Kylara and her delegation returned to their ship, promising to return in 3 days with specialists to begin the exchange. Susan watched the ship rise silently into the morning sky, a mix of excitement and apprehension filling her. The most momentous diplomatic engagement in human history had fallen to her, and somehow she had succeeded. What Susan didn't know was that orbiting high above Earth, 3 other alien vessels watched. The Naviri were not the only species interested in humanity, and not all had such peaceful intentions. 3 days passed in a flurry of preparation. The world government scrambled to form a unified response to the Naviri arrival. Media outlets broadcast non-stop coverage of the landing site. Public opinion swung between fear and fascination. Susan found herself elevated from anonymous aide to the face of human diplomacy. Her apartment now guarded by security personnel, her phone ringing constantly with calls from officials seeking information or influence. On the morning of the Naviri return, a new crisis emerged. Satellite images detected another vessel approaching Earth. This one moved with aggressive speed on a direct course for Denver. The military mobilized fighters, scrambled missile systems activated. President Foster convened an emergency meeting in the underground command center. Susan was summoned urgently. General Harris displayed the satellite feed. "This new ship doesn't match Naviri design," he said grimly. "Our analysts believe it's a different species. The Naviri may have led others to us." Before anyone could respond, communication systems activated. A harsh, grating voice filled the room. "Humans," the voice said. "We are the Drakari. You harbor Naviri criminals. Surrender them to us immediately, or face elimination. We arrive." In 6 hours, the command center erupted in chaos. Advisors shouting recommendations, security personnel rushing to stations. Susan stood silent, watching the satellite feed as the new ship grew closer. President Foster raised her hand, demanding silence. "Dr. Monroe," she said, addressing the chief science advisor, "what can you tell us about this vessel?" The elderly scientist adjusted her glasses. "This ship is approximately 3 times larger than the Naviri vessel. Its energy signature suggests weapons, systems far beyond our capacity to resist." Susan stepped forward. "Madam President, I suggest we contact Ambassador Kylara. They may know these Drakari. Their insight could be crucial." General Harris objected. "For all we know, the Naviri set us up. They gain our trust, then their allies threaten us, forcing concessions." Susan shook her head. The technology the Naviri offered was peaceful. Medical systems, energy production. If conquest was their goal, why not offer weapons to weaken us from within? President Foster nodded. "Susan makes a valid point, General," she said, then turned to her communications officer. "Contact the Naviri immediately." Within minutes, Kylara's face appeared on the command screen. Her expression grave. "You have detected the Drakari," she said without preamble. "We feared they might follow. Who are they?" Susan asked. "Why do they call you criminals?" Kylara sighed, a very human gesture. "The Drakari are conquerors. They believe all resources belong to the strong. They have pursued us across 7 systems, destroying worlds that aided us." General Harris moved into view of the screen. "So you led them to Earth?" He accused. Kylara shook her head. "We took precautions, traveled indirect routes, changed our energy signatures. The Drakari are persistent. We apologize for bringing this danger to your world." Susan felt cold fear spreading through her stomach but kept her voice steady. "What do they want from you?" "They wish to enslave us," Kylara replied. "Our females can sense emotional states, as you know. This makes us valuable for interrogations, negotiations, espionage. The Drakari would use us as tools of conquest. The Naviri ship has returned," President Foster said. "What can be done? We will depart immediately," Kylara said, drawing herself taller. "Perhaps the Drakari will follow." Susan studied the alien woman's face, seeing something the others missed. "No," she said suddenly. "You don't believe that will work. They would still punish Earth for helping you even briefly, wouldn't they?" Kylara nodded slowly. "The Drakari make examples of those who assist their prey. Then we need another solution," Susan said. For the next hour, the combined human and Naviri teams developed options. Each seemed worse than the last. Earth defenses couldn't stop the Drakari. The Naviri ship was designed for exploration. Not combat. Evacuation was impossible. Susan paced the room, listening to military and political leaders argue. She thought about what Kylara had revealed about Naviri abilities. Their empathic sensing, their technology, their history. She approached Kylara, who stood apart from the others. "Ambassador, you said your people can sense emotions," she began. "Could this ability be amplified somehow?" Kylara tilted her head. "In what way?" Susan gestured to the arguing humans. "See how fear drives conflict. Even among allies," she said. "Could we use your abilities to affect the Drakari? Not control them, but perhaps confuse them long enough to negotiate." Kylara considered. "We have technology that enhances our natural abilities, but it would require being near the Drakari ship." "Dangerous." Susan turned to the president. "Madam President, I have a proposal. It's risky but might give us a chance." The plan formed quickly. The Naviri had sensory amplification technology that could project emotional states. Their ship could approach the Drakari under guise of surrender. Meanwhile, Susan would communicate directly, offering Earth as neutral ground for mediation. General Harris called it suicide. President Foster called it desperate. But no one had better ideas. 5 hours later, Susan sat in the Naviri shuttle approaching the massive Drakari vessel. Her heart hammered in her chest. Beside her, Kylara operated complex controls. The Drakari ship loomed ahead like a floating mountain of black metal weapon ports visible along its hull. Susan opened communication channels. Human diplomat Susan Miller requesting audience with Drakari command. She said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I come under flag of neutral mediation." The response came quickly. "Approach docking bay 7 human. A warning. Any deception will result in your planet's destruction." As they neared the Drakari ship, Kylara activated the emotional projector, calibrated to broadcast confusion, uncertainty, doubt. They docked, with surprising ease. The Naviri technology apparently working. Susan straightened her jacket and prepared to meet the Drakari. The beings that greeted them were nothing like the Naviri, massive-scaled creatures with multiple limbs, their faces rigid, masks with glowing red eyes. Susan fought to maintain composure. "You bring a Naviri criminal to us," the leader hissed. "You show wisdom." "Human." Susan bowed slightly. "I bring a proposal. Not a prisoner," she said. "We offer Earth as neutral territory for negotiations between your peoples." The Drakari commander laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Negotiations. The Naviri are property, not equals." Susan felt Kylara's tension beside her, but continued. The Naviri have valuable knowledge they share freely, with willing partners, she said. Earth benefits from cooperation, not conquest. We propose the same opportunity for the Drakari. The commander leaned closer, examining Susan with those burning eyes. You are either very brave or very foolish human. Behind her, Susan knew the Naviri emotional technology was working subtly, affecting the Drakari, creating just enough doubt to keep them listening. Perhaps both, she admitted with a small smile. But I represent a species that has survived by adapting, by finding solutions beyond simple strength. We believe there are benefits to cooperation the Drakari have not considered. The commander stepped back, conferring with others in harsh guttural sounds. Susan stood perfectly still, aware that humanity's future might depend on this moment. The plan had gotten her inside the Drakari ship. Now she needed to convince these conquerors that Earth was more valuable as an ally than a conquest. The commander turned back to her. You will have one opportunity to prove this claim. Human. The leader said, fail and your world burns. Susan was escorted deeper into the Drakari vessel, Kylara following close behind. The ship interior was hot, humid, and dimly lit, designed for the comfort of its reptilian crew. Susan fought to keep her breathing steady as sweat trickled down her back. The Drakari commander introduced himself as Vexstar, Supreme General of the 8th Conquest Fleet. His massive scaled body towered over Susan as they entered what appeared to be a command center. Speak your proposal, human, he growled. What could your primitive world offer? The Drakari Empire. Susan stood straight, meeting his glowing eyes. My world has something neither the Drakari nor the Naviri fully understand. She said, diversity. The commander made a dismissive gesture. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. We understand diversity. Susan shook her head. With respect, General. You conquer but do not integrate. You take resources but lose knowledge. Humans have survived and thrived by adapting, incorporating strengths from different cultures. Naviri empathic abilities complement Drakari strength. Both could benefit from human innovation and creativity. Vexstar circled her suspiciously. You speak of cooperation, when you should beg for mercy. Susan maintained her composure. The Naviri need water resources, she continued. Earth has abundant water. The Drakari seek expansion of influence. Earth offers a strategic position in this sector, and humans need technology advancement. Both your peoples could provide different aspects of what we need. A triangular alliance would benefit all three species. Kylara stepped forward, surprising both Susan and the Drakari commander. The human speaks wisdom. Vexstar. She said, our peoples have been enemies for generations, yet neither has truly won. Both expend resources in endless conflict, the Drakari commander hissed. But Susan noticed others of his kind listening with interest. A young officer approached, whispering something to Vexstar. The commander's expression shifted. Your shuttle carried unusual energy signatures, he accused suddenly. The Naviri attempts to influence us. Susan felt her heart sink. The emotional projector had been detected. Kylara stepped forward. Yes, she admitted. We used empathic technology, but not to control, only to ensure you would listen. The fact that you detected it proves your species' strength and awareness. Susan held her breath, expecting violence. Instead, Vexstar made a sound almost like laughter. Clever, he said. The Naviri use their strengths as we use ours, then addressing Susan. But your proposal remains unproven. Human words are easy actions. Convince. Susan nodded. What would convince the Drakari Empire of Earth's value as an ally rather than a conquest? Vexstar considered knowledge. He finally said, your species appears primitive, yet you show unusual reasoning. If humans possess unique knowledge, we might consider your proposal. Susan thought quickly. Earth history was filled with examples of innovation born from necessity. Humans had repeatedly found creative solutions to seemingly impossible problems. General Vexstar, she said formally, would you permit me to demonstrate human problem-solving ability? A test of sorts. The commander agreed. A demonstration would occur. Earth would present a Solution to a problem that had confounded Drakari engineers for decades. Their faster-than-light drives created dangerous radiation, affecting crew over long journeys. Susan was given access to data on the problem transmitted to Earth scientists. She had 12 hours to coordinate a response back on Earth. Teams of engineers and physicists worked frantically analyzing the Drakari drive specifications. President Foster authorized unlimited resources for the effort. The fate of humanity now rested on human ingenuity. Dr. Olivia Chen, a nuclear physicist from MIT, identified a potential solution. The Drakari used a linear acceleration chamber that created harmful particles as byproducts. She proposed a helical design that would contain the particles within a magnetic field. Susan presented the solution to Vexstar with Kylara translating technical terms. The commander appeared skeptical, ordering his engineers to test the human design using simulations. Hours passed in tense silence. Susan and Kylara confined to quarters while the Drakari conducted their tests. Susan tried to rest but found sleep impossible, her mind racing with possibilities and fears. Finally, they were summoned back to the command center. Vexstar waited with his senior officers, their expressions unreadable. The human solution shows promise. The commander said simply, "Our simulations indicate a 60% reduction in harmful radiation, using your helical design." Susan exhaled slowly, allowing herself a small smile of relief. Vexstar continued, "This proves humans have value, but a single solution does not justify an alliance." Kylara spoke. "Then this is exactly why the triangular alliance Susan proposes has merit." She said, "The Naviri excel at biological and medical science, the Drakari at propulsion and weapons, humans at creative problem-solving. Together we would be formidable." Susan watched the Drakari officers conferring, the universal translator catching fragments of their discussion. Strategic advantage, unexpected approach. New territories. Finally, Vexstar turned back to them. "I will consider a provisional agreement," he said. "The Drakari will not attack Earth if the humans provide regular technological innovation. The Naviri may access Earth's water under Drakari supervision. Each species maintains independence but shares specific resources. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start." Susan thought, a foundation they could build on. "I accept these initial terms, pending approval from Earth leadership," she said formally. The return to Earth was tense but uneventful. The Naviri shuttle escorted by Drakari fighters. Susan spent the journey drafting her report for President Foster, struggling to capture the complexity of what had transpired landing. At the Denver facility, Susan found herself greeted as a hero. Military personnel, civilians, and government officials lined the runway. The president herself waited at the bottom of the ramp. "You took an extraordinary risk," Foster said, embracing Susan, briefly. "But you may have saved us all." The next days blurred into weeks of negotiations, treaties, and cultural exchanges. Both alien vessels remained in Earth orbit, their presence visible in the night sky, a constant reminder of humanity's new place in the galactic community. Susan established an international diplomatic corps recruiting empathic individuals from around the world to train in alien communication. The Naviri began carefully extracting minerals from ocean water. The Drakari shared limited propulsion technology in exchange for human innovation. Not everyone welcomed the new alliance. Protests erupted in major cities. Some religious groups declared the aliens demonic. Others claimed the government had surrendered Earth's sovereignty. General Harris and his supporters continued to advocate for military preparation, believing the alien alliance would eventually collapse. But Susan remained steadfast in her approach, building trust through small successes, mediating disputes when they arose, creating frameworks for cooperation that acknowledged the different needs and values of each species. 1 month after first contact, Susan sat in her new office at the Interspecies Diplomatic Center, viewing the latest reports, water extraction proceeding, smoothly, technology exchange on schedule. Cultural understanding growing incrementally, Kylara entered carrying a small crystal device. The Naviri ambassador had become something of a friend despite their different origins. "The Drakari High Command has approved Phase 2, she announced, placing the device on Susan's desk. Susan activated it, revealing specifications for advanced medical technology from the Drakari Empire, technology they had previously kept secret. "They are actually sharing, Susan," said surprised. Kylara made the gesture that Susan had learned was a Naviri smile. "Your strategy is working," she said. "The triangular alliance creates balance. Neither the Naviri nor the Drakari can dominate. Each must contribute or risk the others, aligning against them. And humans continue to impress both our peoples with your adaptability." Susan studied the medical specifications, already seeing how they might complement Naviri biological science, perhaps leading to treatments for currently incurable human diseases. "We have much to learn," she acknowledged, "but also much to offer. I believe this alliance will transform all three of our civilizations." What Susan could not yet know was how true those words would prove. As humanity stepped onto the galactic stage, their unique perspective would reshape interspecies relations for generations to come. And it had all begun with a single human woman who chose cooperation over conflict, understanding over fear. Susan spent a sleepless night considering the Mithrai crystal and its implications. The knowledge it contained could transform humanity, advancing Earth technology beyond imagination. But the secrets it revealed about Alliance deceptions threatened everything they had built. By morning, she had made her decision. She would not hide the truth nor use it as leverage. Instead, she would confront the issue directly, bringing all three species together. She arranged an emergency summit requesting the presence of the highest authorities from each civilization, President Foster Kylara, who now represented the Naviri High Council, and Thexra, with her Drakari command staff. 7. The Mithrai observer would also attend. The meeting convened in the neutral ground of the orbital station, Alpha, a joint construction project of the three Alliance members. The station hung in space above Earth, a physical symbol of cooperation. Susan entered the conference chamber, her heart pounding but her resolve firm. The gathered leaders watched her with varying expressions: human concern, Naviri curiosity, Drakari suspicion. The Mithrai. 7 stood apart, observing. Susan placed the crystal on the central table. "The Mithrai have provided us with valuable knowledge," she began, "but also with truth that affects us all." She activated the crystal, projecting its contents for all to see. Star charts, technological specifications, and then the evidence. Detailed reports of secret Drakari weapons facilities. Naviri. Genetic experimentation aimed at enhancing their empathic abilities to influence other species. Human military installations, preparing defenses against their supposed allies. The room erupted. Drakari representatives, hissing denials. Naviri delegates, projecting waves of defensive emotion. President Foster demanding explanations from her military advisors. Susan raised her hand, asking for silence. When it finally came, she spoke quietly. "We each pursued security through secrets," she said, "including Earth. We each feared vulnerability through trust, and in doing so we undermined the very alliance that protects us." Thexra, the Drakari ambassador, rose to her full height. "The Drakari Empire does not apologize for ensuring its survival," she said. "Your species would do the same." Kylara stepped forward. "Our research was for defense only," she insisted after countless generations of Drakari aggression. President Foster shook her head. "This bickering proves the problem," she said. "We speak of alliance while preparing for its failure." 7 moved into the center of the group. "The Mithrai have observed many civilizations," it said. "Most destroy themselves through such division. You showed promise in forming your alliance, but failed to evolve beyond instinctual fear." Susan looked at the faces around her, seeing anger, defensiveness, shame. She thought about Earth history, how nations had moved from constant warfare to uneasy coexistence to genuine cooperation. It had never been easy or perfect, but progress had come through persistent effort. "May I speak freely?" she asked, looking at each leader in turn. Foster nodded. Kylara inclined her head. Thexra made a gesture of permission. "The alliance began as a necessity. Susan said. Each species facing threats none could handle alone. We cooperated from fear, not trust, but what we've built has potential beyond mere survival. The Mithrai see this even if we don't. She touched the crystal, causing it to display a new projection, a simulation showing hundreds of worlds connected through cooperative exchange technology, advancing exponentially environmental restoration across multiple systems, peace, expanding through regions previously torn by conflict. This is what we could achieve. Susan continued, but only through genuine integration, not just sharing resources but combining strengths, not hiding our fears but addressing them together. She turned to Thexra, the Drakari. Value strength, but true strength comes from adaptation, not just domination. Your people could lead in protection, becoming guardians rather than conquerors. To Kailara, the Naviri understand harmony balance. Your empathic gifts could help bridge understanding between species, teaching others the wisdom of cooperation. To President, foster humans possess remarkable creativity, innovation. We solve problems in unexpected ways. This perspective is our greatest contribution. Susan took a deep breath, then made her proposal. Each species would place observers within the other's key facilities, complete transparency, monitored by joint teams. Each would contribute their greatest strengths to shared projects, and the Mithrai would serve as neutral witnesses, documenting the process for other civilizations. It was radical, unprecedented, requiring trust that none had fully developed. But the alternative was clear. The alliance would fracture. Each species would return to isolation, vulnerable to threats none could face alone. The silence that followed seemed endless. Then President Foster spoke. We accept these terms. Earth will open its facilities to alliance observers. We choose transparency over fear. Kailara closed her eyes briefly. The Naviri High Council authorizes me to agree, she said. Our people tire of secrets. The burden of distrust has grown too heavy. All eyes turned to Thexra. The Drakari ambassador remained still, her reptilian features unreadable. Finally she spoke. The Empire has conquered countless worlds through strength, she said. Yet we have not found security. Our greatest weapons have not brought peace. Perhaps a new approach has merit. We agree to these terms. 7. The Mithrai observer moved forward. This outcome exceeds probability projections. It said, the knowledge we offer is now freely given. Use it wisely. The implementation began immediately. Joint teams forming to oversee the transition facilities once hidden, now open for inspection. Technologies previously concealed, now shared for evaluation. The process was not without conflict. Cultural differences, practical concerns, political resistance. Susan found herself working constantly, traveling between worlds, mediating disputes, explaining intentions, reinforcing trust. When exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, she reminded herself of what was at stake. Not just human survival, but a new kind of civilization, a model of cooperation that could transform the galaxy. 6 months into the integration, the first truly collaborative project launched, a vessel designed and constructed by all 4 species. The Harmony incorporated Drakari propulsion, Naviri biological systems, human adaptive design, and Mithrai energy technology. Its mission to explore regions previously inaccessible, seeking new knowledge and potential allies. Susan stood on the observation deck watching as the ship departed, its graceful form representing the combined genius of 4 very different perspectives. 4 ways of seeing the universe now working in concert. President Foster joined her, gazing at the departing vessel. 3 years ago, we knew nothing of alien life, she said. Now we travel among the stars. Hard to believe how much has changed. Susan smiled, thinking of her journey from anonymous aide to architect of interspecies alliance. The path had been neither straight nor easy, but each challenge had revealed new possibilities. The Mithrai warned me that what we're attempting has rarely succeeded, she admitted. Most alliances eventually fracture under the weight of difference. Foster nodded. But most alliances begin as we did, from necessity, fear. They lack the foundation we're building now. A communication alert sounded, the Harmony establishing contact from the edge of the solar system. The ship's crew included representatives from all 4 species working together, their faces appearing on the large display. Their differences obvious, their unity undeniable. Susan felt a sense of profound satisfaction watching them, the beginning of something truly unprecedented. Not conquest, not mere survival, but genuine collaboration across the barriers of biology, culture, and history. What comes next? Foster asked, echoing the question Susan had asked Kylara long ago when this journey began. Susan gazed at the stars now filled with new meaning, new possibilities. Everything, she said, everything comes next. Aboard the Mithrai vessel orbiting silently beyond the moon, the crystalline beings communicated in their unique fashion. The experiment progresses beyond expected parameters. The Observer, 7 transmitted. The Alliance shows signs of genuine integration. The response came from across vast interstellar distances. Continue observation. Record all developments. This pattern may represent solution. 7.3. 7 acknowledged. Continuing. To watch as the small blue planet and its unlikely alliance of disparate species began a journey unprecedented in galactic history, the humans especially warranted continued study. Their capacity for adaptation, for bridging differences, for imagining possibilities beyond current reality. These traits might hold the answer to the great question that had driven Mithrai exploration for millennia. How diverse consciousness might unite without losing uniqueness. How strength could exist without domination. How life in all its variations might flourish together on Earth. Susan Miller returned to her office reviewing reports from a dozen worlds. The work continued, endless, challenging, vital, not perfect, not complete, but moving forward one step at a time. One conversation, one agreement, one shared project at a time. The stars waited, and humanity, along with their new allies, prepared to meet them, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as partners in a universe far richer, far more complex, far more wondrous than any single species could comprehend alone. 6 months into the triangular alliance, tensions remained, but progress was undeniable. Earth had established permanent diplomatic stations on both alien vessels. Susan now led a team of 50 human representatives, each specializing in different aspects of interspecies relations. The Drakari Vexstar had been replaced by Ambassador Thexra, a female of her species with a more diplomatic temperament. The change reflected the growing Drakari recognition that conquest wasn't the only path to power. On a cool autumn morning, Susan reviewed reports in her office. The first human spaceship built with combined Naviri and Drakari technology was nearing completion. Earth scientists working alongside alien engineers had created something entirely new, a vessel that incorporated the best elements of all 3 species. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Susan activated her screen, expecting routine updates from one of her team. Instead, Kylara's face appeared, her expression tense. "Susan, we have detected a signal," she said without preamble. "Another species approaches, one unknown to either Naviri or Drakari." Susan felt her stomach tighten. "How soon? 3 days, perhaps 4. Kylara replied. "Their technology is advanced beyond even Drakari standards." The Naviri High Council requests an emergency meeting of the Alliance within hours. Representatives from all 3 species gathered in the secured conference facility beneath Denver. Susan, President Foster, and Dr. Chen represented Earth. Kylara and 2 Naviri scientists represented their people. Thexra and a Drakari military commander completed the group. Kylara presented the data. The approaching vessel dwarfed even the Drakari warship. Its energy signature suggested propulsion, systems far beyond current Alliance technology. "We have attempted communication," Kylara explained, "but received no response." Thexra, the Drakari ambassador, hissed softly. "They may be collective," she said. "Every spacefaring race fears them." Susan leaned forward. The collective. Thexra nodded her scaled head. "Like your insect colonies, but sentient. Each individual connected to a central consciousness. They do not communicate as we understand it. They assimilate. President Foster spoke for the first time. What are our options? The Drakari commander activated a holographic display of Earth and surrounding space. Our combined fleets are no match for a collective vessel, he said. If it is indeed them, we recommend immediate evacuation of your leadership. And key scientific personnel. Foster shook her head. We have billions of humans. Evacuation is impossible. Dr. Chen, who had been studying the sensor data, raised her hand. The energy signature has patterns, she said, mathematical sequences. These aren't random. They appear to be prime numbers. Susan looked up sharply. Prime numbers, basic mathematics. The universal language. She turned to Kailara. Could they be attempting communication in a way we don't recognize? The Naviri scientist considered. We assumed standard protocols. Perhaps this is their method. For the next 2 days, Alliance scientists worked to decode the mathematical patterns. Dr. Chen led the effort, identifying increasingly complex sequences embedded within the energy signature. The approaching ship slowed its approach, maintaining position just beyond Mars' orbit. Giving them time to understand, finally Chen burst into Susan's office, her eyes bright with excitement. It's a test, she exclaimed. They're watching to see if we can understand their mathematics. If we respond correctly, they communicate further. The Alliance sent a response continuing the mathematical sequence and adding new patterns. Their own invitation to communicate. Hours later, the alien vessel adjusted course, moving closer to Earth, but still maintaining a respectful distance. A new transmission arrived. Images, mathematical formulas, and finally, something recognizable. Symbols arranged in patterns similar to chemical formulas. The collective was actually a singular entity. The Mithrai, a species of crystalline beings with distributed consciousness, each individual connected but independent. Their technology had evolved over millions of years. Their interest in Earth Alliance stemmed from observations of 3 very different species, cooperating in an arrangement they had never witnessed. Susan found herself once again representing humanity in first contact. The Mithrai communicated through a combination of mathematics, images, and carefully structured language. They expressed neither hostility nor particular warmth, only curiosity. They observe, they document, they analyze. Kailara explained after several exchanges, they have visited thousands of worlds across multiple galaxies. They are knowledge seekers. President Foster remained cautious. They clearly possessed technology that could destroy us if they wished, she noted during a private meeting with Susan. Why reveal themselves at all? Susan considered the question. They seem to value diversity, she said. Our alliance represents something new, something worthy of study. Perhaps even preservation. The Mithrai requested permission to send observers to Earth, a small delegation that would study the triangular alliance. They offered knowledge in exchange, navigational charts of unexplored regions, medical science beyond even Naviri, understanding energy technology that would transform human civilization. After careful deliberation, Earth leadership agreed with specific conditions. The Mithrai would be limited to designated areas. Their technology would remain under their control. But knowledge could be shared. The arrival of the Mithrai observers created a global sensation. Crystalline beings that seemed to shimmer with internal light, moving with fluid grace, despite their apparently solid structure. They spoke through devices that translated their vibrations into human language. Susan led the diplomatic team assigned to the new visitors, her experience with both Naviri and Drakari proving invaluable as she navigated the complexities of yet another alien perspective. The Mithrai chief observer, identified simply as 7, met with Susan daily. 7 showed particular interest in human art, literature, and philosophy, concepts apparently unfamiliar to their species. Your kind creates stories that never happened, 7 said during one exchange. Fiction. You imagine what is not. This practice seems inefficient, yet you value it. Highly. Susan smiled, trying to explain the human need for narrative, for meaning beyond facts. The Mithrai listened with what seemed like genuine interest. Over the following weeks, a pattern emerged. The Mithrai observed alliance meetings, technical exchanges, cultural events. They recorded everything, asked questions, but offered little about themselves. President Foster grew concerned. They take far more than they give, she told Susan during a secure briefing. The knowledge they promised has been minimal, vague. We need to press for more concrete exchange. Susan understood the frustration, but urged patience. The Mithrai perception of time seemed different from humans. What felt like delays might simply be their natural pace. During her next meeting with Seven, Susan carefully raised the issue of knowledge. Exchange 7 tilted its crystalline form, light reflecting in patterns Susan had learned indicated consideration. We have observed enough to make preliminary assessment. It said, the alliance of disparate species functions through mutual need. Humans provide innovation, adaptability. Naviri provide biological insight, harmony. Drakari provide strength, protection. Each compensates for others' weaknesses. Susan nodded. That's an accurate summary. Seven continued. But foundation remains fragile. Trust incomplete. Each species maintains separate agenda. Hidden preparations. Susan felt a chill. What do you mean? The Mithrai observer emitted a soft humming. We have observed Drakari weapon development beyond shared agreements. Naviri genetic research unknown to Alliance human military. Preparations exceeding disclosed parameters. Susan sat back stunned. The Mithrai had somehow seen past all security measures, detecting activities each species had kept secret. Seven leaned forward slightly. We do not judge this behavior consistent with survival imperative. But Alliance cannot achieve potential without true integration. The Mithrai observer placed a crystal on the table between them. This contains knowledge as promised. Star maps, energy formulas, biological science. But also, truth. Without complete transparency, Alliance will fracture within 17 of your months. Susan stared at the crystal, understanding the impossible position she now faced. The Mithrai had given her knowledge that could advance humanity centuries, in development but also information that could destroy the fragile peace they had built. What would you have me do with this? She asked. Finally. Seven rose, preparing to leave. That is... question. We came to answer. What will humans do when given truth? Will you use it for destruction or creation? Will you conceal or reveal that choice defines species more than any technology?